Copper prices are high, demand is growing, and the world is building more infrastructure around electricity. So you might expect the companies that process copper to be in a strong position. Instead, something unusual is happening. In 2026, the benchmark fee for processing copper concentrate fell to zero. In the spot market, treatment charges went negative. Why? A copper mine doesn't produce the metal that goes into a power cable. It produces ore. That ore is processed into copper concentrate. The concentrate is sent to a smelter, then refined into the metal manufacturers actually use. Mine, concentrate, smelter, refinery, end product. And each one has its own constraints. Over the past 2 decades, copper smelting capacity has expanded rapidly, particularly in China. Mining supply has not expanded at the same pace. That leaves more smelters competing for the same pool of concentrate. Normally, the miner pays the smelter to process it. That payment is the treatment charge, but when concentrate becomes scarce, smelters have to compete for feed. The bargaining power shifts, the fee falls, it can reach zero, and eventually it can turn negative. Sulfuric acid. Certain copper mines use it to extract copper from lower-grade ores through leaching. So copper production can be affected by a shortage of something that isn't copper at all. Copper smelting produces sulfuric acid as a byproduct. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kamoa-Kakula operates a 500,000-ton per year copper smelter. But in 2026, the smelter was operating at about 60% of its design capacity. Further ramp-up was constrained by the availability of concentrate feed. At the same time, the smelter was producing sulfuric acid for nearby mining operations. Its July acid contracts were priced at about $840 per ton. One copper operation was producing a chemical that other copper operations needed. That is how interconnected this supply chain has become. The Democratic Republic of Congo is one of the world's major sources of copper concentrate. In 2026, the country moved to restrict exports of copper and cobalt concentrates, with waivers possible in certain circumstances. The goal was to push more processing into the country and capture more value locally. But what if the material is available but processing capacity isn't? The copper hasn't disappeared. It simply cannot move through the global supply chain in the same way. And this is where demand becomes important. Artificial intelligence is adding another layer of pressure. A data center doesn't simply need servers. It requires vast amounts of electricity. That electricity requires generation, transmission lines, substations, transformers, and cables. Copper is used throughout that infrastructure. The IEA expects copper to have the largest increase in demand among major energy transition minerals through 2040. The difficulty is that supply cannot respond at the same speed. A major copper mine can take many years to develop. New projects need permits, roads, power, water, processing facilities, and enormous amounts of capital. Higher prices can encourage investment. They cannot make those years disappear. Recycling helps. Copper can be recycled repeatedly without losing its basic properties. But much of the copper installed today is still being used. A cable buried underground or copper inside a building may remain there for decades before it becomes available again. For investors, that changes the question. The copper story isn't only about who owns the biggest deposits. It is also about who controls the parts of the supply chain that are difficult to replace. A mine matters, but so does the smelter that processes its concentrate. The refinery that produces usable metal matters. So do the chemicals, infrastructure, and technology that keep the chain moving. The value may not always sit where the copper is found. Sometimes it sits at the bottleneck, and that may be the part of the copper market that matters most. The world doesn't just need more copper. It needs a supply chain capable of delivering it.